Start housekeeping.
Thank you for participating in today's meeting. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room, and please silence all devices. If translation is provided, click on the globe at the bottom of your screen to select either English or Spanish. Public comment will be taken after each item. If you're in the auditorium and wish to comment, please use the iPads located in the lobby or complete a blue speaker card as available. If you need assistance, please find a South Coast AQMD employee. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all agenda items. Times may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. More time will be allotted for Spanish translation that is not simultaneous. For questions or issues on making a public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-2432. That's 909-396-2432. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Happy 2025 to you all again. I think we can start our review of for our board assistant briefing, go through the agenda. We'll start with item 1, which is the review of the board agenda for February 7th of 2025. Flip to, I believe, page 7. We don't have any set hearings for this particular board meeting, but we do have an update on our ports measure. And for that, Ian, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. Ian McMillan. I'm the Assistant Deputy for Planning. We have this informational item for the upcoming board meeting on our ports work. It's been a little bit since we've been to the full board on this item. I think the last discussion on this was at board retreat last year. And so we wanted to provide an update on just the latest staff work. We've had a number of working group meetings and a lot of other stakeholder meetings in the last year or so. Really, a lot of staff work, engaging with stakeholders, getting that feedback on potential paths forward. One of the things that we've really heard is that there's some areas of disagreement, certainly, but some areas of I think. Some areas really of agreement on some things really need to move forward. And one of the things that I think we've really heard from a lot of folks is a desire to work on infrastructure that's needed for the next generation of vehicles that are coming along. There's a lot of focus, of course, on electricity for things like cargo handling equipment and trucks, but there's other fuels that are important too when we're thinking about ships, alternative marine fuels that might be out there, and other vehicle categories. So there's really a lot of focus on this infrastructure side, and that needs to be put in place before any of these vehicles really can be deployed, and wanting some certainty on that. So we've really been focusing our efforts lately on this charging and fueling infrastructure, and our efforts really are focused on that aspect and really seeing a need for a comprehensive plan that the ports would do on charging and fueling infrastructure, looking at all fuel types, and then requiring implementation of that plan. So that really has been our focus over the last little while here. So what we're going to be discussing is, what this approach is, and looking at, what are the different elements that might be in a plan, talking about some of the stakeholder feedback, and then just laying out some of the next steps that we see in this process. We do plan to have a working group meeting coming in late February, and try to get some language out for everybody to see a little bit more detail what it is that we are proposing as a preliminary first draft, and really to just continue that public process. Certainly available for any questions on this brief update.
Questions for Ian? Deborah, I see your hand is raised.
Ian, so when you say that you're going to have language available, are you talking about language for a plan, or are you talking about rule language?
Uh, what we're looking at right now is preliminary first draft rule language, and the rule would require a plan, and we would lay out what that criteria is for a plan, and then require implementation of the plan as defined by the ports. And when I say implementation, just to be clear, this is not anything like emission reduction targets. There are no cargo caps. There's nothing like that in what we're uh, uh, pulling together. Instead, this is really just the installation of the necessary infrastructure as defined by the ports, and then appropriate contingencies, because this would be anticipated to be something a little bit more long-term. And as the future unfolds with some uncertainties, that there would be allowances for those uncertainties and a more predictable, certain path.
So are you holding the ports responsible for the infrastructure, or are you holding the utilities and the utility companies and the local municipalities? I mean, who's responsible for the infrastructure if you're going to have a rule that
That's a
demands
great,
that
I'm
use?
sorry. Yeah, that's a great question. What we are looking at for this effort would be having the ports be responsible for pulling together the plan. They are the most logical entity for looking at that infrastructure planning effort. On the implementation side, they'd be responsible for what the parts that they are responsible for. If there are things like utility delays or what have you that is outside of the control of the ports, then that they wouldn't necessarily have a responsibility there. But there would have to be a responsibility on the ports to plan for that. As these conditions change, they would have a role to keep that in their planning efforts.
Brad, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, a couple of questions. So when you say this is for the rule, I'm assuming you're talking about ISR, right? Port ISR?
Yeah.
Okay, so the port ISR is still there. You said you were gonna do this plan within that rule, which is the ISR, which we're supposed to do. But then it's a plan, the way I understand, it's only infrastructure. And the port is responsible to put that plan for that infrastructure. There are no requirements for clean, zero emission, near zero emission, whatever vehicles, the way I understand. So you are basically going forward with putting infrastructure without any plan on the vehicle side or major funding. That infrastructure may end up not being used to not only to its full capacity, but even at a lower capacity. The reason I'm saying that, because years ago, I was doing the shore power projects at the port, Prop 1B, and we installed like 20 shore power units at Port of Long Beach and LA and all that. And in the beginning, the problem was that there were not enough ships to be used to plug in. And then we provided funding and all that. It came up. The ARB put certain targets for usage of those. Is your plan gonna have some at least targets of certain percentage of the time that infrastructure be used, that the ports be responsible for that or not?
Yeah, great question. What we are looking at now is that this effort would focus just on the planning and the installation, not on the usage. You raise a good point that, it really is ultimately about the usage, but I think at this stage, we're looking at an incremental approach, and that this first increment is really important. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg. At this point, I guess it's the egg that needs to come first, and that really helps define the timing of when that infrastructure comes in. Really defines, okay, when to plan and when to put, whatever mechanisms in place to actually get the usage and that vehicle turnover. But this is really only focused on the infrastructure planning and installation.
Without any follow-up phases?
I think that's something we're looking at as far as what are the appropriate next increments. But I think for this current effort, this is a big enough piece Infrastructure is a huge challenge, and so I think we're trying to really focus the effort on that first big challenge.
And my last question, where is the funding gonna come for this? It's upon the ports to provide funding and do that infrastructure as part of a rule that you're talking about, or is it gonna be through incentives from the district?
That's one of the things that we are asking the ports to pull together in the plan itself. There's a lot of funding that's been made available recently through various grants. So to comprehensively pull that together, to look at that holistic sense of what funding is available, what grants do they have, what might be upcoming, what other sorts of funding there could be, what are there funding mechanisms the ports are thinking of for themselves that would be new. Lay all that out, and that helps inform their timelines for when infrastructure can be installed.
Thank you.
Okay, before you run, Michael, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Ian, thank you. I just had I know that the district had previously considered doing this as an MOU versus a actual rule. Is the district kind of tossed that out of the window still? I mean, this kind of seems not to have as direct reduction, like, emission reduction. So maybe an MOU with the ports to, come up to an agreement of what infrastructure needs to be installed prior to a rule being enacted would be a better path. Just kind of wondering if that's still something on the table or if the district has ruled that out completely.
We do expect that this is going to be something we're going to hear from a lot of stakeholders. We've heard this a little bit already, so I would expect that at the board meeting, this question will come up, certainly from stakeholders. At this stage, what we are working on is preliminary first draft rule language. I think that's where we are right now.
Ron, go ahead.
In the offsite we had last year, there seemed to be a number of parties who were actively interested in being part of the process. And would they be working with the port, or would they be dealing with us at all in regard to their plans or what they want to do, which in some it seems like several cases they had different approaches in regard to the fuel and et cetera.
As far as pulling the plan together, that would be the port's responsibility, and they would be the ones that would be consulting with all these stakeholders that are out there. A lot of that is already happening already, and we see projects already underway at the ports, including some of the kinds of technologies that were discussed previously that you're referring to. But you're right, there's a lot of different stakeholders that are out there and different ideas on how to move forward. But yeah, that would be more on the ports as they pull that plan together to decide what kind of technologies or what kind of approaches make sense.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Ian? Michael, you have your hand raised again?
Yeah, sorry, I had a different question. I know you talked about some flexibility, but obviously we don't want to just install infrastructure to install infrastructure and say, 5 years down the road, we really say battery electric Class 8 trucks are not feasible. It's all hydrogen. We put all of this charging infrastructure in and it's not going to be used. Is there a plan to tie projects for some like zero emission vehicles to be tied to the installation of the infrastructure? Say, hey, you have this funding available, it's set aside, you have this plan, this is where this infrastructure is going, but you don't have to install it until you actually have a company that's committed to battery electric trucks coming to the port. I know that there are some, but we don't want to put all this infrastructure in if 5, 10, 15 years down the road, it's obsolete,
Yeah, good question. I think one of the things that we're looking at is the ports. You mentioned trucks, so that's actually a good example to tee up. The ports and the Clean Air Action Plan 8 years ago already put forward a target of 100% zero emission drayage by 2035. So what is the plan? How do you get there, right? And how much of that is hydrogen? How much of that is electricity? And it's going to take some time to develop that infrastructure and to put that in place. So you can't just flip a switch and suddenly it's installed. It takes years to pull this together. So the idea is the ports, they're doing some planning now. How much of that on trucks is going to be on port versus elsewhere? What kind of technology are they going to be providing on port? You can look at cargo handling is similar. They have a 2030 goal. Well, that's from infrastructure standpoint, that's right around the corner. So these decisions need to be made from the port as a landlord and the land use agency on what direction they want to go as far as fuel providing, right? But they need to lay that out, and how do they sequence it and all that they're going to define that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ian.
Great. Any more questions on this particular topic? All right. Harvey, I see you have your hand raised. Just as a reminder, this is a review of the full board agenda is item 1 for the agenda for board. We'll have public comment after we've completed that review. All right, if we can flip to the beginning of the board agenda, we don't have set hearing for this board agenda for this board meeting either. So we'll start off with our item number 2, and I believe the first 4 items are Aaron's. So Aaron, maybe you can take us away.
I'll start off. This one is to issue the program announcement for a low emission school bus program, and changes to this program this year. We haven't released this for 2 years. Basically, we're to make the program full zero emission. So no more natural gas buses part of the program. And I'll pause there and ask if any questions.
So these mostly be battery electric, and are those on the market and readily available?
On the market, available, like was brought up in tech to me. We don't anticipate any supply chain issues, but it is.
Right?
No hydrogen, I would assume, not for a school
I
district.
haven't seen one for school this yet. No.
This is a very, very good program. I started this program in 2001, and we have always been oversubscribed. So just a couple of friendly suggestions. You don't have to do it, but because of all the years I did this, I read the program announcement. The way I understand from the board letter, you don't have to go back to the board because Wayne already gets authority to sign the contract. But regardless, the board members really like this program, and everyone wants to make sure their counties get enough funding. So when I was doing this program, I saw the criteria here. You say pre-2005 buses, CHP certificates, zero emission, and all that is good, but you're going to be oversubscribed overwhelmingly. And so the way we were doing that everyone was happy at the end, was that we were awarding based on allocation of the total funding proportional to each county's population. That was one award criteria. So Riverside, Savard Green getting 11% each, Orange County 18%, the rest 60% to LA. And then for LA Unified, not to overwhelm all the schools, they were also getting their percentage proportional to their population, which was anywhere to 60 to 70%. So you don't have to do it. I'm just suggesting when you do the awards, if you consider that, so each board member will know that their county has gotten a fair share of number of buses. And like Riverside schools don't have to fight with LA Unified and so on. So population distribution is quite important. And then each school district gets basically they replace their older buses first. The other thing we did is to make schools happy. We said every single school district that applies, they get at least one bus. So no one can say, I was ignored, it wasn't fair, or whatever. The other good thing that this does is once you get a bus, it puts you on the path of doing more buses. So when there is program announcement next time, they will apply again. Just suggestion.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. We do take that into account, the geographic distribution for the awards. And then we also, in this round, will have to look at the EPA funding. EPA has a lot of funds to this program that we've administered. We did just get a grant from the federal government from EPA for more school buses that will come to recommended for here pretty soon. But we do have to look at, like LA Unified is going to $20 million grant on the CPA award. So we'll have to see how the demand is on this one. It's really interesting with the money that's been out there lately. So, but yeah, good points.
One question. Is the infrastructure money sufficient for a school district to put the infrastructure in?
Well, yes and no. Some installations, like we've had a few school districts that have gone with some big installations. And that's required some supplemental where they have applied to our Moyer program to help assist with those additional. But the installations, they're not like the Class 8 battery trucks where you need 350 kW. These duty cycles are known. You can charge them 8 hours during the day between shifts overnight. So they're not as powerful. Our requirements are a lot less. Okay, no more questions on that item. Moving to item number 2. This is to start a new project with a company called Range Energy. They started off, they have a trailer that we demonstrated with them recently. It's basically a hybrid assist trailer. It's got a battery pack on the bottom. So as the diesel truck or zero emission truck accelerates, the trailer helps provide propulsion to the truck. So it uses needed diesel or battery electric on the truck, and then also can regenerate the energy when it slows down. So their first demonstration with us went very well. This is to start a new demonstration where we add electronic battery operated transport refrigeration unit to the trailer. Try this out. This is a partnership with San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, and then a supply chain. It's a restaurant supplier is going to utilize the trailer for deliveries to the restaurants as a demonstration.
So I'm assuming though that at some point you are going to have to recharge the batteries off the grid, right?
Yeah, so they do have a plug-in option with that, but you anticipate that in the long haul that you've got enough back and forth with the trailer regeneration that. But we'll have to see. I mean, it hasn't been done before, so it may be that it doesn't work. We have a plug-in all the time.
So what's the trade-off? How long does the batteries last? Can they run the TRU for the full cycle on? What's the way to get off?
Yeah, the weight trade-off, I don't think we know that yet on the size of batteries they're going to source for this. They have to do the engineering to figure out that battery size for this particular trailer. There will be a little diesel generator backup for that TRU just in case, because you can imagine these loads are quite expensive. You don't want to risk losing the load. But for the most part, this really has to be designed from ground up. So the trailer works, it's been demonstrated. We need to get some zero emission TRU units in place, some demonstrated. Carbon has regulations to require those here.
So with the new warehouses, they're requiring release outlets for TRU, right? So are TRUs hybrids? Can you run it on diesel and then plug it in when you?
That's kind of the design for the ones that you plug into the base there. Yeah. But Thermo King is working with this on this project. They're one of the biggest manufacturing TRUs.
Just over in Fontana, aren't they? Thermo King.
I think so. I spoke to Lionel many times, but I've never asked them. I'll take your word for it.
They used to be anyway.
Okay, any other questions? So agenda item number 4, I'll speak on the list here. Two separate items in the board letter. The first one is to amend the contracts for the Joint Electric Truck Scaling Initiative. This was a project we entered into with their resources board and the California Energy Commission, largely funded by them. basically implemented charging infrastructure at 2 sites, Schneider and NFI over in Ontario. Both were doing 50 trucks apiece, battery electric trucks. The NFI site has had some issues in getting that infrastructure installed. They have their site a little different than Schneider. They're adding solar panels and battery storage. That has added some more difficulty, more costs, and in the time that we've been trying to get this project installed, the price of everything's gone up. Electrical switch gear's gone up 4 to 12 times. So the recommendation here is to take some of the admin funds that we can use and move it towards the project and our energy efficiency, so they're okay with that. The second item in this board letter is with their mobile source reduction committee. They've signed MOUs with the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach to receive essentially 24 million truck fee funds from them to implement some battery electric charging infrastructure sites. So the MSRC in 2022, their goal was to really focus on infrastructure. This is one of the projects that came out of this partnership with Poland. So I'll pause there with any questions. Okay, no other questions. And then lastly for myself, is the this board letter has not been through committee, kind of an urgent item. The recent wildfires, we in our residential program with East Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, West Commerce, we have an air filtration program that has been helping provide residents there with air filtration units. We just got a swarm of applications due to these wildfires. So we're recommending adding funding to assist with those applications we recently received. And that covers it for me.
Okay, great. Not seeing any further questions on that. So we're right now on page 5, and we are at item 6, and the next item is Ron's.
Good morning, Ron Moskowitz, Chief Information Officer. This action is to obtain approval to purchase telecommunication services from selected vendors based on the RFP P 2025-03 to be paid over 3 years. This is a standard item that we request every 3 years. Funds for this fiscal year's purchase is included in the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and additional funding will be included in subsequent fiscal year budget requests. Happy to answer your question.
Questions for Ron? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7. To approve contract modification is approved by MSRC. Aaron?
Yeah, there's really not a lot to mention here. It's just going down with the MSRC board letter. They recommended to be awarded under that MOU. So we use their signs. It's basically here in the source of the documents.
Okay. Seeing no questions for Aaron, we'll move on to items 8 through 14. These are receive and file only. Questions on any of those?
Mark Taylor Memorial question.
No, but I do have a question on the forecast item 12. So I know
She would get it first.
I know we've got 3 changes to it. My question though was in listening to what Ian was saying about the ports rule. Ian, I don't see it on the rule forecast. When are you thinking, and when is staff thinking? You said you're going to have some language that you might be bringing forward to the governing board. When do you think? What's the timing of all of this? When do you think you'll have language available for the public and for the governing board? And then when do you anticipate bringing such a rule forward?
Yeah, I can take that. Right now, we are planning to bring an item to the board in third quarter of this year. And we are anticipating releasing the language that was discussed earlier mid-February, before the working group meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, moving on, on to items 15 to 20. These are reports for committees. Any questions on those?
Carved up to anything interesting? They've done enough lately.
Okay, any other questions on the board agenda? So we can finish item 1 for our agenda. All right, seeing none, we can go to public comment for the board agenda. Is there any public comment? I see that Harvey, you have your hand raised. Harvey, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Am I being heard?
Yes.
Are you playing in it?
Okay. My name's Harvey Eder. I'm speaking for myself and PSPC and like-minded folk and individuals. I want to bring to your attention. Hello? I hear people
Hello?
jabbing in the background. Am I being heard?
Yes, you are. Go ahead, Harvey.
Okay. First of all, I could not get the agenda for this meeting, and that's been generic to all committee meetings for the last month or so. And when you could get it, it says that it's not secure, which opens us up to all kinds of
Mr. Eder, please
terrorism.
limit your comments to items on the agenda that's being discussed, item number 1. Thank you.
We see the authoritarian, totalitarian propensity of our government being
Thank you.
cut
We
off
can
by
move
legal
on.
like a chain of legitimate.
Okay. Any other public comment on item 1, which is our review of our governing board agenda?
We're not using the, should I come up here?
Sure,
Okay.
come up.
All right, thank you. Hi, good morning. Peter Whittingham, on behalf of LA BizFed. Appreciate the opportunity real quickly. Appreciate very much Ian's presentation on the update on the ports dialogue. As he shared, there has been considerable meetings, discussions, what have you, on frankly, an infrastructure plan that I think emanated from last year's governing board retreat, and certainly in a variety of conversations, both in the working group meetings that were held down at the ports that were extremely productive. I think there was more than 80 folks participating in each of those. Frankly, it was more topics and more dialogue that could be constrained into the time for those meetings. And so we look forward to more of those. With regard to the rule language, and again, per the nomenclature, a rule. The mayors of Long Beach and Los Angeles issued a joint letter last year that basically supported an agreement, not a rulemaking. We talk about a rose by any other name, but there is specific compliance and mechanisms that go along with a rule, as opposed to, as Deputy Mayor Friedman said just last week at the State of the Ports event, that the mayor supports a strong infrastructure plan with a strong enforceable plan. We won't refer to it as, Michael brought up the word, can't say Voldemort, but whether it's an agreement, a binding agreement, a compact, something of that nature, where everyone, there are requirements for compliance. We put this plan in place, the port puts together a plan for what is the infrastructure that's going to be forthcoming to then utilize the zero emission technologies that are there. Fred, I appreciated your comments, but I think that where the technology is today, unfortunately, terminal operators, what have you, can go out and procure trucks, zero emission trucks, whatever. There's just not an infrastructure there in the ports for the drayage trucks to be able to utilize to the greatest advantage. So that's where we need to be focused, everyone working together. Again, there is considerable monies that have been brought forward. There's the Clean Truck Program, which is, I think 3 or 4 years in now, where there's well over $150 million in that alone, et cetera, to work on building out this infrastructure. We know the challenges that both Edison and LADWP are having, and those will be exacerbated, frankly. So we need to be working collaboratively to get that infrastructure in place in an agreement that is binding, that then can lead to more of the deployment of, as Prologis is doing and others, buying zero emission technologies that they can charge effectively at their terminals and in the port. So appreciate very much the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comments on this item, review of our board agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to a second agenda item. Any other business that we need to discuss?
I have one. I found it interesting on my own when I saw the AQI saying it's good when we knew it was was bad. And then I saw a couple articles, several articles that addressed it. And I think it puts us in a bad light. But we say air quality is good, and then everyone else knows it's just horrible. Is that we should, I think, not just go by the AQI, but in those type of cases where you have fires, where you have strong, almost hurricane winds, that it's not good. It's pretty awful. And that the executive officer or whoever would say, we're gonna call it hazardous or whatever the term is. And maybe we should be more out there also, because I read an article in the Southern California Tribune that where they have about 6 or 7 different newspapers. And they didn't mention AQMD until the 19th paragraph. And some woman who was very excellent, seemed like she knew what she was talking, it was her talking about it. I think we should have more of a positive, upfront, out there presence, so that they know who we are and that we are the ultimate air quality people. And I remember, can go way back, that a long time ago, we always had a spokesperson who was out there, visible, and would give the public a sense of more security and knowing that we were out there, because that's what we are. We are out there. Anyway, that's my point.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ron. And a couple of things, if I may here. I'm like, we have been out there and giving a lot of media interviews, and as well as some messaging around AQI and why there's a difference. As you're aware, our monitoring network is for PM 2.5 and PM 10. Ash is bigger than that. So when you have conditions where there's ash fallout, it's not necessarily going to be captured by our monitors. But our monitors did fairly accurately capture the smoke that was present.
What I'm suggesting is that at some point we can say, this is what the AQI is, this is the reality. We know that when you have a forest fire or you have extremely strong winds, I mean, I wasn't affected by the forest fire, but my pool was so dirty that it's taken me three cleanups by the pool guy to get it even acceptable. And so that type of dust, it can't be. I just think that it's possible that we can say, we know it's bad. We're going to overrule the AQI in these areas that we know it's bad, and just say, don't go out and do things.
So that was our messaging, actually. We were asked people to check the AQI, warned them about the ash, and then the banner, we actually changed the banner on our app where we have the map with the AQI with that caption so that folks could understand that there's ash present. And so even though AQI might show it's good, there's still other things you need to look at.
Just one comment or question on this AQI during the fires. I was pretty close to the fires, and we had received notice to be ready to be evacuated. So I had things in the car. We were ready. Fortunately, we didn't evacuate, but we had lots of smoke, and then I could see small particles and all that. The AQMD app, I've used it for years. It's really nice, lots of information, everything. What puzzled me, and I don't know how to answer it, and I couldn't answer to my own friends. I was checking the hourly PM2.5 several times a day, and it was showing like 35, 40, everything was below 50. And then when I was checking the daily, it was showing 200. So when I checked a couple of times, it was 35 or so. I thought maybe it's at that moment, but if I keep on checking cumulatively, it will get to 200. But like one of the days, I checked it maybe 10 times. And every time the hourly reading was below 50. And then at that same time, when I went to the daily, it would show 190 or 200. I didn't understand that.
We can take a look at that and see what went on there.
Okay.
Okay.
Just props to your staff. I was at the Riverside County Board of Supervisors meeting the other day. Don't ask why. There was a lot of public comment. There was 4 hours of public comment, and your guy stuck it out, that it, after 3 hours of public comment on another issue, he updated the board on 11/11, so he probably thought he was gonna be back here by noon. It was a long meeting.
Good to know.
But anyway, your folks are out there trying to get the message out on 11/11, so props to you guys.
Appreciate it. All right, any other business? Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item is general public comments. Any commenters? And I see I have some hands raised. Harvey, go ahead.
Okay, my name's Harvey Etter. I'm with PSPC. Am I being heard?
Yes.
Okay. I'm incorporating by reference the Senate Budget Committee's meeting today, and read by Senator Weiner. We've been communicating with his staff and staff from the Assembly. Assemblies have been one on the 10th, and that incorporating by reference the 130 some page report by Special Prosecutor from Justice Smith that stepped down. They didn't go after Trump. They said there's 250 witnesses, slam dunk case. Well, we're taking point on that. We're asking that y'all call a special meeting of the board to support this and to work with the state, taking point with others. There's also half a dozen and a half attorney generals on the 14th Amendment violations for birthrights and other stuff. Heads of this came from the Supreme Court case, and we're incorporating by reference comments we made on the 10th to the board on the 17th, different committee meetings, and also other stuff that we're doing on this. This is very important. Okay, all the stuff that's coming down, challenging the money that's coming in all this for all these programs, taking on Project 25 as a terrorist. So also we made comments to Washington Journal, and all of those are the ones we made on the 6th. They cut half of us off. We did this 4 years ago, trying to stop what happened on the 6th 4 years ago, and it's extensive and needed on the record. We need to work on this and now. Then we brought this up about related to the fires and the climates. Also, there was an earthquake in 06 to burn San Francisco to the ground, and we're 170 years after an 8-point earthquake in Fort Tejon, and it's the same thing here. We got to ready now with these winds, a new situation. We got to deal with it. We listen to us instead of purging people. Bye.
Thank you, Harvey. The next public commenter we have is Rita Loof. Rita, go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Rita Loof, Director of Environmental Affairs for RATIC International. And I wanted to give the board assistants heads up regarding a rule bundle of 4 rules that staff is proposing all at once. I've been dealing with district rules for a very long time, and it used to be that the district would propose 1 rule at a time. But recently, we are seeing bundles of rules, and the bundles that I'm referring to will impact 3 industries: aerospace, Rule 1124, metal coatings, Rule 1107, and the wood industry, Rule 1136. Our association has members in each one of these industries, so this will be a huge impact for us. According to staff, these rules are intended to phase out carcinogens and allow VOC increases during reformulation. And I stress VOC increases will be allowed during reformulation. UV, EV, LED materials are not formulated with carcinogens or solvents. But what we learned from the recent amendments to the automotive coatings rule is that the proposal then morphs into a red tape rule with extensive reporting and record keeping requirements for all materials, even those like ours that are toxic free and VOC free. These types of policies actually act as barriers to implementation of clean technology. So we urge the board to be mindful of these unintended consequences and to stick to the stated purpose of Rule 1124, 1107, and 1136, which is to reduce emissions. not
be.
add requirements for facilities to fill out more forms. That will actually prevent people from converting to clean processes, which is what you want to do as far as being the mission of the district. So these are very harmful policies to industry that do not do anything to benefit air quality and really add a lot of burdens to the business in Southern California. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that, Rita. All right, any other public comments? Seeing none, with that, we can adjourn the meeting and we'll see everybody at the board meeting for next Friday. And then our next board assistance briefing would be on Thursday, February 27th. Thank you, everybody.